Hello, free enterprise and free enterprise fans. My name is Maggie the Cat, and we are here today for another great Magma Route matchup between beernerd and starmanrandom. I am joined today by our fabulous restream team. We've got Smapety doing the restream. Oren Soren is doing our tracking today, and joined on commentary, I have Rex Raoul with me. Rex, how you doing, and what do you think of this matchup today?
Well, I'm doing great, Maggie, and I'm really looking forward to this matchup here in the Magma Route. Now we're looking at both Beernerd and Starman here, and both of them went 2-1 in the group, the first part of the group area, to qualify for this Magma Route. Beernerd in the Gilgamesh group and Starman from the Ravena group. The interesting thing about both of their paths was both of the groups that they were in had 3 runners qualify for the Magma Route. So there's a good chance that either of these runners might face some of their fellow group members later on in this magma kind of funnel that we're at right now. So there's a lot going on here. And then, of course, whenever we're talking about both the magma and hook routes, wins are so important at this point of the tournament. And so both Starman and Beernerd are going to be really going for this one.
Absolutely. And if anybody was familiar with their original matches from the original group stage, of course, they had 2 wins, 1 loss to get here to the Magma Route. Both of their losses were actually very, very close races from what I recall. Beernerd lost to Zyrak. That was a very close race. There was only about a 2-minute difference. And then Starman lost to Microcorgs. That was also a very close race. Starman only lost because I think they were both in their Z fight together, and Starman wiped, whereas Microcords was able to defeat Z without wiping. So both very strong runners. I think we're up for a really, really good matchup this afternoon.
Yeah, I remember Beernerd did a very good dive into the Fabul Gauntlet, and Starman is one who's always up in the racing clubs and the weekly races and doing great work over there. So very accomplished runners of their own rights. And it looks like we get Cecil and Yang as our first 2 characters, and we get the Bahamut summon. So if we find it early in Rydia, that could be very strong. Otherwise, it could be a really good boost to start the economy of these runners.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not a super strong starting pair. Cecil, of course, starting as a Dark Knight is very weak, and then Yang gets great later on, but starts out pretty weak. But we do have free characters on, so I'm sure that some of the first things our runners are going to do is going to go check for both items and characters in some of those item dense and character dense locations that are going to be available to them.
And we've got some, we don't have slam dunk objectives for this particular race. We will require 3 of the 4 objectives, as you see in the middle of your screen. The first one, the Forge one, is always one of them. The other 3 vary, and so this time we have the Destroy the Super Cannon, which will require both underground access and the tower key. We have Trade Away the Rat Tail, which require the rat tail and the hook, and the Vanilla White Spear Altar will require the Darkness Crystal and probably plenty of levels.
Absolutely. And right away, we do see our runners taking a little bit of a different path here and doing these early both item and character checks. We see an edge here in the waterway, along with a cat claw that starmanrandom picked up for that young. And then we've got Palom and Kane here in Mysidia. So already adding some much needed power to the otherwise slightly underpowered starting duo that they started with.
And right after that, Edge was found by Starman a ninja sword as well. One of the better weapons for Edge that you can find outside of his, of course, like your Osames and Masamunes, which are, of course, the end game weapons. The ninja sword is really what you're looking for to really boost the damage output of Edge. He's great for the early game just with his double short swords, but you give him some good stuff like that, and he's good for the whole entire run.
And there was also a strength ring picked up in the backside of the waterfall here. So even more damage for that edge. Anybody can benefit from that strength ring, of course, but I think that edge with that ninja sword is going to be a real powerhouse for the early game for both of our runners.
The real question with characters, I think, has, at least throughout this entire event, has been, what do you do with Cecil? Like, at what point do you decide, is it worth it to keep Cecil? Is it worth it to just get rid of him? In a lot of events that we've had so far, the presence of Cecil is usually something that's just absolutely welcome. He's very strong. He gets the best weapon in the game, the Crystal Sword, if you're able to find it, of course. But in this one, there's a bit more of a liability to using Cecil, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the flags that we have enabled for the Threemus Zone flag set is the vanilla agility flag, which means that if Cecil is in your party, he is going to be your agility anchor, no matter what position he's in, and no matter what else you have going on in your party. So when we talk about agility anchoring, Rex, what do we mean by that exactly?
Basically, the way that active time battle was kind of conceived of was having one character in which everyone else's agility relative to that character is based around. So if you've got a slow character as your anchor, all your other characters will be faster, and this also includes the monsters. If you've got a fast character as the anchor, then everybody else will be slower, also including the monsters. And for certain fights, it's more advantageous for you to have a really fast anchor, some to be really slow. But if you've got Cecil, you don't have as much flexibility, because without Cecil, then whoever's in the middle position can be your anchor. And depending on what equipment you have and what characters you have available, you can kind of customize that to the best of your abilities. However, with Cecil as your anchor, it doesn't matter where you put him in the party, it's always going to be around him. So you've just got a lot less control over it, unless you're really micromanaging his levels and the agility and the equipment that you have with him, which can sometimes mean that you're going to not want to level him as high as you do other characters, and kind of forfeiting some of the strength that you can get out of him.
Yeah, so it does definitely make him a bit of a double-edged sword. It's actually not uncommon at all to see runners decide to ditch Cecil, especially early on if they haven't found any good gear for him. But speaking of gear, we did find a really great Murasame pickup here in the Antlion Cave that starmanrandom was able to give to his edge, and getting through that Dark Imps fight very efficiently to get a Legend Sword, which is the first part of the first objective that they are going to need.
Yeah, nice little pickup there. Meanwhile, Beernerd had decided to climb Mount Hobbs to check the character up there. Did find Tella a very popular character in this particular flag set. He's got a lot of utility use. However, the boss up there was Golbez, and not something that Beernerd wanted to tangle with at this time, so decided to opt out of that, head over to Antlion, so he's going to get that Legend Sword just like Starman did. We did also have a Damsian Castle check, and we did see the Spoony Bard Edward up there, and there's some things that you can do with him. I'm not sure if our runners are going to want to keep him for the long haul. If it's a shorter race, we might see some spicy stuff with Edwards, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
So I'm sure that our runners are going to be a little bit relieved to see Golbez here on Hobbs, because it means that he's in a non-required spot. They're not going to have to deal with Golbez later on in the required spot. Unfortunately, starmanrandom peeked the boss in the waterfall and found, I believe that was the Kaipo guards, which is another non-required boss location, but that boss is a really free boss. They can be stopped with hourglasses, they can be coffined. They're what we consider one of the freebie fights, and so it would have been really nice to find them later on, like maybe in that White Spear altar location that is required.
Yeah, and so having that fight out of the boss pool and having the Dark Imps out of the boss pool, you really don't want to see these quote-unquote free bosses fall to the wayside this early in the seed. As you say, that White Spear altar is going to be looming over the runners throughout this entire seed, knowing that that's probably one of the things that they're going to want to do, because they only need one key item for that. Most of the other objectives, you're going to need multiple key items in order just to see it. So that's something that they're probably going to want to conquer. And if it's a free fight like those Dark Imps or something, then they wouldn't have to do a whole lot in order to do there. But there's a lot of scary bosses that could be in that spot.
Yeah, definitely. We are now seeing the boss here at Fagul Defense. Baigen, this is not a bad spot for Baigen because Baigen can be pretty scary in a spot like the White Spear Altar or any of the moon locations, really.
Spots that have really high physical attacks can be very scary to fight a Baigen at. Getting this early, especially when you've got the tactical advantage of an early edge, is very nice, and you just don't have to worry about it as much. As you said, there's a lot of spaces where he could be very scary.
That edge with Ninja Sword, Murasame, and Strength Ring, as well as his default black belt gi, doing upwards of 1,300 damage. Absolute powerhouse for this early part of this game. Picks up a pass from doing the Fagul Defense. Not a bad item to see. Of course, we are probably going to need the Darkness Crystal. Could maybe not be required if they do find everything else that they're going to need to do the first 3 objectives, and then they maybe could bypass the moon entirely now that they've got this early pass.
And that's kind of one of those situations where if we are able to find all these other objectives relatively quickly, those are the sort of situations where you might see something like Edward become suddenly a lot more valuable.
Yeah, we at least I haven't in the races that I've seen a lot of Edward strats come out, which is a whole other thing that we can discuss if it actually becomes a viable option for them as we get a little bit further into this race.
I think the nature of this flag set means that it's not going to happen too often. Requiring 3 different objectives usually means that it's going to be a pretty long seed, and the advantages that you get from pulling off Eddie strats kind of diminish as the seed gets longer and the levels get higher. We need to find everything really quickly in order for that to become a reality. In the meantime, we're seeing a peek over at the Baron Inn, and we see the CPU over here.
I don't hate to see CPU here. CPU is not really a dangerous fight no matter where you find it, because this mazer that we're seeing from the attacker drone is the only actual damage it will do, and it will do 10% of your whole party's total health. So it's fairly easy to heal that up no matter what spot you find it in. But the main CPU's health will vary depending on what spot you find it in. And since it is in the back row, it does use wall. It will take less damage, potentially, if you haven't back row glitched your characters. It won't take damage from direct cast spells. It can take a long time to get through this fight, so finding it in an early location like this that doesn't have a ton of hit points is pretty nice.
Speaking of back row glitching, it looks like Starman has back row glitched that edge, doing full damage from the back row. You can enable that just by equipping his right hand with a boomerang. Either the boomerang or the full moon will do. And we get a spoon as the reward here, as well as a Sid. That spoon is pretty spicy with an early Edward as well.
Oh, absolutely. We do have the spoon flag enabled, which means that Edward all of a sudden becomes Spoonward and is able to equip that spoon just like Cecil could equip an Excalibur. And I believe that it has, is it the most or second most power of any weapon in the game? So Edward now has just become on par with, if not more powerful than that edge that's all fully equipped.
Well, I think the equipment like the black belt and everything, the multipliers are probably still going to be a little bit more for edge at this level. However, that 255 attack power of the spoon is not to be trifled with, and that's going to make him a powerhouse throughout the middle portion of the seed, and you can definitely use him for the Threemus fight as well with the spoon.
So we see Starman has decided to go up ordeals. This is, I was going to say this is an interesting play because he doesn't have anybody who really benefits from ordeals, but I guess he's also kind of out of checks at this point. He's done Baron Inn, he's done Fagul, he's done Antlion, and we haven't found a way underground yet. So this very possibly could be his underground access is sitting up here on ordeals, unless we have a spicy demist hunt on our hands.
Yeah, that would be the other option at this point to check. We've already checked the waterfall spot. We haven't checked the demist vanilla spot. I don't think either of the runners have peeked in there yet. And we haven't seen the really trolly location of the vanilla Maga Sister spot, which is technically available to our runners at this point. But I think there's 3 boss checks up here as well, so the odds of finding the demist are just as likely up here on Mount Ordeal, so it makes sense that Starman's going here after completing Antlion, Fabul, and the Baron Inn.
Looks like he picked up a second edge here on Ordeals as well, which is not bad at all for this already growing in power party that he has. I don't know what kind of equipment he got. That might have been a mute dagger that he was able to put on that second edge.
I didn't catch that, but it is interesting to note that he decided to ditch the Sid that he picked up in the Baron Inn to make room for that edge, and has decided to keep that Cecil in the party. And that's going to be like kind of gambling on either completing that Forge quest or hoping to find a Crystal Sword or Excalibur somewhere, because without having that available to him, Cecil is kind of underperforms because of the agility issues that we mentioned earlier.
Meanwhile, Beernerd's got quite a different party composition on his side. He's got the Edge and the Yang and the Cecil that Starman has, but he did go to Mysidia and picked up the Cane and the Palom. So he's got a little bit of magic on his side. Now, if he can get that Palom up to, I believe it's 29 or perhaps 30 by the time they go underground, so that Palom can get Warp, that'll be really useful and important for completing the Dwarf Castle.
Another option for that is if either of our runners decide to go up and fight that Golbez and get Tella. Once you complete Mount Ordeals, Tella will have access to that warp spell as well. It is also worth noting if the access to the underground becomes the hook, then there'll be another character check along the way there. And if you get somebody like Rydia, she learns warp at a really early level as well. So that's another option for enabling that warp glitch.
So both of our runners have now cleaned up everything except Ordeals, and we are about to see on Starman's side what this Ordeals check is. And there is that hook that you just mentioned, Rex.
Yeah, so it looks like unless we find that D-Mist somewhere and it's holding the magma key, it looks like we're in for a hook route tonight. And that's something that's... Ooh, and we see a free boss in a free location. This spot here, as the third boss on Mount Ordeals, is one of the easiest bosses in Free Enterprise. And to see possibly the most free boss, the King Queen Evelyn, in the most free location is a bit sad for our runners, because they'd much rather have that be, like, now that we've got the hook route enabled, that Rubicante spot would have been a really nice place to see King Queen Evelyn and get underground really easily.
Oh yeah, we are quickly depleting the free boss pool here on the blue planet, and so I think there could potentially be in for a rude moon, even potentially a rude path to the underground and rude underground once they get there. Although I guess I did miss the first time through here that Ogopogo was here on Ordeals. We're seeing that on Beernerd's side. So they have also eliminated a few of the more rude bosses, like that Golbez that we saw on Hobbs, and this Ogopogo can be very nasty in a higher tier location as well.
And speaking of the hook route, if that Baigan was in the vanilla King Queen Evelyn spot on the hook route, that would have been a very scary spot to find Baigan at this early part of the run as well. Looks like Starman is heading over to Mysidia, wants to peek these characters, going to have access to that Palom and Yang that we saw Beernerd take earlier. It was Kane, sorry, not Yang.
Oh, yeah, no problem. That Palom, he probably still has enough XP if he does the trapped chests on the way down to the hook route to get Palom at least up to Virus, if not possibly Quake. And it looks like he's thinking about dismissing. Yeah, it looks like he decided to dismiss that Cecil and take that quick kid instead.
Just without having found any of the legendary holy swords for Cecil, there's just more upside for Palom, especially having access to a character who could possibly do that warp glitch that we were talking about recently. It makes sense to kind of get rid of him at this point. And decided against taking the cane, since he still had access to that Edward. That's kind of the big difference right now in the party composition. Starman had decided to keep the timing of when they did the character checks kind of benefited Starman to have access to that Edward who has the spoon right now. By the time beernerd got the spoon, he had already ditched Edward from this party. So it's just kind of interesting when we've got all that sort of the free characters and deciding when to go to Mysidia, when to go to Dempsey, and when to go to these places where you get the free character checks and how you're going to build your party. Because once you decide to kick somebody out of the party, you can't get them back again.
Oh yes, that is the C buy flag that we have enabled for this flag set. So you do have to be a little bit careful about your party composition. So, you know, if you want that Cecil, if you think that maybe you're going to luck into a crystal sword, if you never do, you've got to decide if you want to go find a low-level character to replace him with that you haven't already picked up, because you can't go back to the Tower of Wishes to just pick somebody up who you've already recruited.
Starman, now in the Eblin town, the item shop, usually one of the most stacked shops in the game. The gating of the shop is very good. We've got sirens and Bacchuses available for sale. Very good items. The more ninja swords, if you want them, in the weapon shop, they're very expensive to buy. That's why it's really nice that our runners were able to get one in his chest early, rather than spending the 60,000 gold that it would be in order to get them.
Oh, that was a nice white spear pickup for Starman. He does not have the cane that beernerd does, but that was the chest that was right outside the town area. So it'll probably be likely that beernerd might open that chest as well if he hasn't already gotten a good weapon for his cane.
It kind of depends on the priority and how scared they are of this particular encounter, the double Staleman chest, because this is a pretty difficult fight overall. The two back row glitched edges for Starman make it a lot safer, but a lot of parties that are going in this hook route, if they don't have the luxury of these edges that deal so much damage so fast, can easily be wiped by this double Staleman chest.
Got another Bahamut for their trouble. Still haven't seen Iridia, so if they have wanted to hang on to one, they can at least sell one for a nice little bit of cash there. And these spears that Starman has been picking up can at least be used as dart fodder for his edges.
I think that at this point, we're almost getting to the point where even with a Bahamut in your inventory, just leaving Iridia by the wayside tends to make more sense. But instead, we see an Edge as the character here. Edge number 3, plus our boss in the Rubicante spot is the Mist Dragon, and that is kind of a trolly spot for D-Mist, all things considered.
Ooh, yeah, I don't love to see D-Mist there. I mean, you do like to see D-Mist whenever you find it, so then at least you know where it is, and you know where you can find that extra potential key item. But D-Mist in that spot is going to be pretty rough, because that spot's got a lot of HP, especially for the levels that they're going into it here. And I think that's going to be a pretty rude boss for both of our runners coming up here.
The big problem with D-Mist isn't its physical attack. You can deal with that in the Rubicante spot. The real danger is the fact that it will counteract fight attacks when it's in its mist form with a cold mist. And again, it's not too dangerous, but it means that you can't really effectively berserk any of your characters. And that's usually the best way to deal damage with a physical party like this, is to just throw on those Bacchus wines that you found for sale in Evelyn and attack as often as possible. That's actually going to end up making the fight go longer because you're just waiting for the animation of that cold mist every single time a berserk character attacks. And that's kind of the fear of the demist in this particular spot.
Now this is interesting that Starman has decided to skip all the chests here on the way into the hook route bosses. One of these chests does have the 4 Mad Ogres, which is pretty common for the runners to look for that chest and do kind of a mini grind on it. If you have hourglasses or some kind of status spell that can affect them, like I know Mini is very common. They don't have a white mage, so that wouldn't work here. But if they do have an hourglass, that fight would be pretty doable, especially since they've got these edges. I think they've got a mute knife, and they could get some levels. But it looks like Starman is wanting to keep Callum down and is maybe thinking of trying to do some kind of slingshot with him, or maybe using him as an anchor.
It might be to anchor through this particular set of fights here. If he doesn't think it's going to be enough to get Callum up to Virus or even Quake, then he might say, like, it's just going to be more advantageous for me to rely on my 4 physical fighters here. And then the benefit of that is you can use them as the anchor here, and then once you get to the underground, since we bought Sirens, you can cash in on an egg and maybe get that slingshot that you were talking about.
That's very true. This Mylon Z here in the first boss spot, not too difficult. It does hit pretty hard, as we see, and I don't think that they've found illusions. And of course, they don't have anyone who can cast Blink yet. But Edge in the back row can at least take a hit. And yeah, it looks like between all the physical damage that the Edges and that Edward were able to do, Starman does get through that fight.
And now here we are at the D-Mist fight. No save from Starman. I don't think Starman considers this to be a very difficult fight, especially with that back row Edge. I think there's just a lot of safety in having one of your primary damage dealers have the protection of the half damage from the back row. So I think that's kind of the logic going in. If you're not going to be using your Bacchus wines, then you can use the time during the mist form to recover with your life potions and cure 2s so that you can kind of keep it up. It's a slow fight, as we mentioned, but it shouldn't be too bad.
And beernerd is quickly coming up on these fights as well. I believe that he did take all the chests in the cave coming up here, and it looks like he's trying to take the chests here in the upper part of the tower as well. So we may get to see where and what is in the Mad Ogre chest if beernerd finds that.
And if that gives a significant number of levels, that might make this Demist fight go a little bit faster for beernerd than it will for Starman. Though it might be mitigated by the fact that Starman does have that Edward, that can deal a lot of damage through the spoon. But Demist is pretty fast at this spot, gets those 3 hits in and turns into mist right away. You are not doing a whole lot of damage per cycle on this Demist at this point in time.
Yeah, it would be really nice if they had a white mage. Maybe throw a slow or 2 on that D-Mist. Could also help with blinks on the party to mitigate some of that damage and having the life and cure everybody up while the D-Mist is in mist form.
You can kind of see the advantage of that Edward with the spoon, swinging for over 1,000 damage. As we see the darts coming out now too. Now that's another option that our runners have. The powerful weapons they have that aren't being equipped right now by any of the characters can just be chucked by either of the Edges to do a bunch of damage in one go. And that might be the way to get through this fight a lot faster than just waiting until it's okay to fight again.
Yeah, we see those spears that Starman picked up from the chests that he did open are coming out, and good use here to get through this fight a little bit quicker, because this spot does have 18,000 or 20,000 HP.
It's a lot, especially for this point of the game, without a doubt. Because remember, this is in the vanilla game where when the time that you fight Rubicante is after you've done a bunch of stuff in the underworld and then go back to the overworld. And so it's kind of a mid to late game boss. And that's a pretty high HP spot. Like after it, you've got like the sealed cave, the bosses at the bottom of the Feymarch, and the moon and the giant. And those are like elite bosses that you're talking about at that point.
So beernerd did get through the Mad Ogre's chest fight pretty quickly and efficiently there. Only got a stack of samurai arrows from the chest itself, but did get several levels on his party. And I think most importantly was able to pick up a virus on his Palom. And I think that's going to help a lot in both of these fights coming up here.
Another thing to be concerned about is that. Okay. Sorry. Looks like Starman didn't use the sort button in the inventory. He's got 2 piles of life potions. One, there's only 5 left, but he looks like he's got another stack of about 40 of them. So I don't think he's going to run out during this fight. That was a concern when I first saw that little tiny pile that he was using that's up at the top of the inventory, but that was the pump fake that got me there.
Yeah. Everybody starts. One of the other flags that we have on is the starter kit, and so you start with a few life potions and other kind of basic essential supplies right at the start of the seed, just to kind of get you going, so that you don't have to do a ton of shopping right away. But of course, you're going to want more than the 5 or 10 life potions that it starts you out with. So that's not uncommon to see the first pile of life potions right at the top of the inventory, and then a much bigger stack later on after the runners actually find a town that sells them.
beernerd starting that Threemus fight and has a tool that we didn't see in Starman's inventory, and that was a silk web. Hopefully that's going to mean, for beernerd's sake, that when the Threemus is in dragon form, you get more opportunities to fight. The downside is it means that it's going to spend a bit longer in the mist form as well. So 6 of one, half dozen of the other, I guess, sometimes. But looks like he's going to go ahead and dart that spoon, get that out of there right away, do a huge chunk of damage in one go. beernerd is looking to save some time here, it looks like.
Yeah, that did upward of 7,100 damage, so he did dismiss his Edward, so he is not planning on ever taking an Edward now if he finds one later on. Whereas Starman's got that spoon equipped on his Edward and does get through this fight, so he is going to be the first of our runners to break into the underground, but beernerd is very close behind here, I think.
Yeah, very different strategies for this fight. Looks like beernerd found at least one illusion as well, having the blink status on Cecil. So we've got very different things, different items in the inventory that have been found, different paths, different characters, and so different ways of handling this fight that I think beernerd might have been thinking about a lot of the things that I was saying about how this can be a slog of a fight where you just can't rely on berserking characters. You got to find something else, and so pulled out the darts, pulled out the illusions, pulled out the silk web, whatever I can do to keep it in this dragon form and do as much damage as possible as quickly as possible.
Yeah, using that illusion on Cecil so that then Cecil can cover for the wounded characters. We see Cecil taking 2 hits there for Palom, who is in critical state. Very nicely done by beernerd.
Now that we are officially underground, Starman is heading over to the Feymarch. Looks like he's going to make a save outside of the Feymarch. That might mean we're going to be looking at some looting here. And that is nice to find that warrior's chest. In the first chest you open up, you can just save back to that safety save that he made right outside the Feymarch. And now he knows exactly where that trap chest is. Every other chest in here just has goodies in them.
So one thing that we are going to have to keep in mind, and I really, really hope that the runners keep it in mind, is that they do have to go back up above ground to Mist Village to talk to Rydia's mother to see what, if any, key items she has now that they have defeated D-Mist. It's something that a lot of runners will like to do that right away after defeating D-Mist, because if you don't do it right away, you're going to forget about it. But now that you're underground, you have all this stuff to do. You can go check the Fame March. There's all these checks, all this stuff you can do. So they kind of don't want to go back above ground right away, but they also have to remember that when they do, they've got that check that they have to make.
And I think one of the things that's kind of like the most optimized way is to kind of route that in while you're doing, like right now, it looks like Starman has started doing what we kind of call freebie checks. Key item locations that aren't gated behind bosses once you get to the underground. And this vanilla rat tail chest, which just turned out to be a guide drum, no key item this time, is one of them. If you go down to the Sylph Cave, you can trigger a key item check in Fabul with Yang's wife Sheila. And so getting those out of the way now, just in case they're really important ones, like if that's where you find the darkness crystal, or if that's where you find the adamant, those are going to be really important ones. Tower key, all of these are huge, and if there's something that you can get into your inventory and be ready for them right away, all the better. And right now, the mist check is basically in that category. And so if you're going to go to Sylph Cave and start that path of checking those, then you might want to check in the mist app right while you're doing that full check as well. Do everything in the overworld at the same time, do everything in the underworld at the same time. Less transitions from overworld to underworld means just more time saved.
So Beernerd has gotten through that D-Mist fight very nicely and efficiently done. I think his fight was probably just a little bit quicker than Starman's, so he may have made up just a little bit of time there. So he's going to be joining Starman down here in the underground. Starman here in the Bosses of the Fame March finds the King of the Summons, Bahamut, in the Leviathan spot. This can be a free fight if you know how to handle it, which it looks like he does. If you have enough Star Veils, you can just leave your Star Veils up and let Bahamut Mega Nuke himself.
The only risk is the possibility of the Star Veils falling off before all of the necessary Mega Nuke reflects are. Starman seemed to be really careful about when he applied that second Star Veil, so might be okay for one but not the other. But we'll see if it lasts. This next one, I think, is the last one that's required.
Yeah, I think the spot has 35,000 HP, so I think he needs a total of 4 reflected Mega Nukes to get through it all without doing any extra damage.
And he did. He very well played there, was able to get those Star Veils off. The timing, because like your gut instinct is to just, right at the start of the fight, set up those Star Veils, and that might not be the best move in this situation. Only gets a defense sword out of it. A little bit unfortunate that he had to use the only Star Veils in his inventory for that. But it is nice to get that out of the way. It's a nice little boon of experience. It looks like Palom and Yang got that there as well.
Yeah, picked up Quake on his Palom, so I think that this Starman had left his Palom defeated, and so he may have gotten a little bit of Slingshot on his Palom, so that was really nice to get those levels on Palom, and now that makes the rest of the underground much easier for Starman.
Yeah, I'm not sure, did you see whether or not his Palom had learned Warp as well? That's the other important one.
I don't think that he did, but let's check his levels.
Hey, there's that sort button there for Starman. Looks like Beernerd has decided to go to the other free check that I mentioned, the Sylph Cave, to start the Sheila chain. Now, this one is one that's some people like to wait until they've got the pan to do this, because then you can kind of get 3 item checks with just 1 walk through the Sylph Cave. And that's kind of a personal preference. It's a gamble either way, because you're either gambling on hoping to find something in this first check, and possibly taking more time if you have to go through it again, or gambling that you're going to see the pan at some point anyways. So it's a gamble either way, and so far our runners are taking different choices on that.
So chat is saying, and also I did get a peek at Palom's levels when Starman was in his inventory there, that Palom is level 25, and he doesn't get Quake until 29 or 30. So not quite high enough to, or not Quake, but Warp rather. So not quite high enough level for Warp. So he's in Dwarf Castle now. He's doing a little bit of looting and a little bit of shopping. He might just be here for that reason, and might go do some leveling, but looks like he's going to go talk to the king and do the bosses here as well.
At least peek these bosses here. Meanwhile, beernerd turns in that mischeck that we were talking about, gets just an Excalibur. Well, I say just an Excalibur. He does have a Cecil in his party, so that's a pretty good weapon, but it's not a key item. And so even if for some reason Starman forgets it, and like, these are really good runners, I don't think they're going to forget it. But even if he does, he's not going to be punished for it with that just being an Excalibur there.
Yeah, if he puts it off for a while, it's not like beernerd just found the Darkness Crystal or the pan or something that's going to be like really important to lead to something else, you know. And even for Starman, the Excalibur will be really nice for his edges to dart.
First boss in the Dwarf Castle is the D-Lunars. This is one that's, again, a little bit scary for this party where you really want to fight. Now, they do have some other alternative methods of dealing damage here. We did learn Quake on Palom, so that's huge. Yang has a built-in alternative to fight in power. So we've got some ways to deal damage that don't require the fight command. It's when you use the fight that they become really scary, and that Quake really proves to be the X factor here.
And apparently, my timing on mentioning Darkness Crystal was just right on beernerd's side. He did not get Darkness Crystal from Threemus, but he did get a shiny black rock from Sheila, since we know how much Sheila likes that shiny black Darkness Crystal.
Sheila really likes having the goods just in general. It's like, if you're a superstitious free enterprise player, I recommend doing the Sylph Cave as early as possible, because Sheila likes having really important items.
She sure does. Beernerd back down in the underground now after clearing up some of those free checks that we had talked about earlier. Using a siren, or probably a couple of sirens here, to summon the egg over on the west side of the underground. He's going to scramble some eggs to get a few levels for his party. This is a really common grind location and grind method. Especially early in the game. It can definitely be used to grind up to Zeromus levels, but especially kind of to the early to mid-game like this, really common to get enough levels just to get through the underground and kind of mid to later overworld checks.
With Starman, whether or not he got enough levels to learn Warp on Palom, it doesn't matter anymore, because he got saved out by finding Old Man Tella as the character in Dwarf Castle, and since he's already completed Mount Ordeals, he's got the full spell suite, which includes the Warp spell. So he gets the Earth Crystal from completing the Dwarf Castle itself, and now he's going to use Warp to get another key item check right for free. Now, beernerd did do that grind, as you said, and that's going to be access to the Warp spell. Turns out the Warp spell probably wasn't required, but the Magma Key is a key item, and getting closer to 10 key items is a very important thing in this randomizer.
Yeah, very nicely played by both of our runners. Honestly, Starman taking kind of a little bit of a gamble there, thinking that maybe he would get enough levels on his Palom, and then kind of lucking into that Tella, and then beernerd cracking just enough eggs to get his Palom to warp, so that he knew that he'd be able to do the warp glitch going into this fight. So nicely done by both of them, really.
And now Starman is not far behind on what beernerd has done, heading on over to the Sylph Cave, wants to do this. Now, he does have access to that darkness, or excuse me, he doesn't have access to the darkness crystal right now. He does have access to the Fey March. We have that other boss. I don't remember. I believe it was a Lunar Sparkle sitting next to the Bahamut that he defeated. There's also Keyless Tower available at this point as well.
Yeah, I believe both the Ashura, Queen of the Summon Monsters spot, and the boss at the top of tower, which they were able to peek on their way down after defeating the Demist at the Hook Route. They were both Lunar Sparkles. So, let's see. What happened? We've already seen Ogopogo, and now we see the Lunars. So we still have Plague, Pale Dim, and Wyvern. Is that right?
Yeah, the Wyvern looms over all, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So Starman, remembering to do this check here in Mist Village, like we talked about, going to get this Excalibur. A nice dart item for his edges that he's got in his party, and Beernerd cleaning up the dwarf castle checks that Starman has already finished. So Rex, where would you go next? They've got access to the Earth Crystal, and then they still have the rest of the underground checks to make at this point.
I think checking at least the treasury is in order, especially with all these characters like edges and things like that. If you can find more Mazamunes, in Bearderd's case, if you can find a crystal sword, these are sort of the things that you want to get. Sorcerer robes would be great to find. I'd at least check there to see what's available. And then it's kind of a personal preference if you want to do the gamble of something like the Tower of Zadat. But with this party, I think you're strong enough. I'd probably go to the moon, and at least we've got some sirens. We could do a grind, whether you prefer warlocks or gold dragons. Both of them are available to you at this point in time. And so I'd probably maybe crack a siren for that, and then take a look at that White Spear altar and see what we're up against.
Yeah, it's kind of a known philosophy to do the checks that you can do as soon as you can do them. So like the rat tail, for example, or the tower key could be at the White Spear altar. So, go do it as soon as you can. Or the adamant could be there for all they know as well.
There's that, and the fact that if you're able to start taking out moon bosses, there's so many key item checks that are up there on the moon that being able to take out all of those at one time, not only is it going to possibly lead you to what the items that you need in order to complete your objectives, it's also going to be just moving your total experience level party of your party up and up and up, so that when it is time to be in go mode, the less grinding that you're going to have to do before Zeramis as well.
Well, it looks like Starman is at least thinking along the same lines as far as raising the big whale. Now, he does have a few options. He could grind in the Giant of Babel if he wanted to, since he did pick up Tella. He could do a D-Machine grind at this point if he wanted to, or he could be thinking of going up to the moon like you were talking about.
Looks like he might be deciding to avoid that treasury, though. If he's really happy with the party and what equipment he has, and he doesn't think that he needs to do a lot more shopping, then that would make sense too. But it looks like he's going to fly around. Let's see where he's heading. Meanwhile, Beernerd grinding out some more eggs. That's the word I'm thinking of. Yes, I know how to talk.
Making omelets here down in the underground. Starman maybe raised that big whale and then remembered that he's got this Earth Crystal that he can use to open this treasury, because he's over here in Troya, and looks like we are going to take a peek at what kind of treasure we have available to us tonight.
Yeah, so chat, once we see what's in there, get ready to rate it and give us your values out of 10, and we'll give you our opinions of it too.
Now, the ninja sword is pretty nice out of the that's not the main treasury, that's the little treasury.
Yeah, we don't count that one. Though it is a very nice find. I will agree with you there.
Yeah. And Beernerd right behind raising that big whale.
we see a Stardust Rod, a Crystal Ring, an Apple, a Leviathan Summon, Dragon Whip. We got some good stuff for Iridia. Not much for our party right now, especially as far as Starman is concerned. Yet another Ninja Sword. I think the Stardust Rod is the big prize there. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, the Stardust Rod and the Crystal Ring is really nice as well. The Ninja Sword is pretty good for the second edge. They found another, I think it was a middle blade, which is nothing. The Iridia stuff they can sell. I think there was a glass helm, which might be nice if they run into like an antlion or an octomom, something like that they need some physical defense against.
I'd probably give it about a 6 out of 10. I think there's some good defensive stuff, and that Stardust Rod is really nice for the party. Their edges were already pretty decked out.
Yeah, I was going to say about a 5 out of 10 for this particular party.
Yeah, we're pretty similar on that. Beernerd has already gone up to the moon, so he decided to avoid that treasury. I mean, it is time to go to that treasury, and if you like what you've got already, you don't really need to do it. But it is a lot of money. If you want to buy some things, there's a lot of things that you can sell from there. And there's the possibility of getting like a bunch of really good equipment for your party as well. I think it's usually worth the gamble. It kind of depends on where you are in the seed, how deep you are, and what you've got in your party to figure out if it's going to be worth it. And it looks like there's another Sid up here on the moon as well.
It's a pretty good anchor character, but it looks like Beernerd, of course, already has Cecil, and if he's wanting to keep that Cecil with that Excalibur that he found, he's not going to take the Sid for that. Not sure if Starman is going to want to take an anchor at this point. He's got a pretty nice party composition already.
Yeah, I think at this point he's probably going to keep the party as it is, but I've been surprised enough times. I know he ditches Sid, so.
We've had some interesting divergence between the two runners, and now we see convergence here on the moon as both of them are diving down to the lunar subterrane. I believe they do both have sirens, so yep, we see Beernerd is summoning warlocks, it looks like. We'll see if Starman does the same grind. There's also the Gold Dragon grind open to them, as you talked about earlier, Rex. But after getting a few levels, we're probably going to see this White Spear alter in just a few minutes.
And I think this Warlock grind makes a lot of sense for Beernerd, having access to Mute Bells and doesn't have access to the Weak spell. So I think Starman could opt for the Gold Dragons instead. Having Weak on Tella means that those Gold Dragons can be handled a lot more easily. And so I imagine we're going to see two different grinds here. But again, I've been surprised plenty of times.
I love that about this particular flag set, that there is so much divergence available as far as like what objectives they can complete. Of course, the 3 of 4 are required, so it's entirely possible for each runner to do a different set of objectives. We see different party compositions, totally different routing depending on what the flag set or what that particular seed provides to them. So it's been very interesting.
And then, of course, I'm immediately corrected because as soon as I said it, then I saw Starman go into the inventory and move the Mute Bells up to the top. It's like, oh, well, he's definitely doing Warlocks. If he's concentrating on those Mute Bells. He also had the Mute Knife, too. So these Warlocks go down very fast with that. You don't need any weak spells in that sort of situation.
It looks like he's wanting to keep his Tella at a low level to utilize as an anchor for the rest of this moon. That is one nice thing about Tella, is that once you do ordeals, he has his full spell list. He's not really going to gain anything by leveling him. He gets a few hit points, but Tella's never really going to be Zeromus ready unless you really, really overlevel him or give him a bunch of apples or something like that. So he really, once you do ordeals, is when he gains his full power. So you don't really need to level him, and then he becomes both utility with his spells and a decent anchor as well.
and that's kind of the advantage of not having Cecil. The advantage of having Cecil is that he can have really powerful swords and hit enemies really hard with them.
Yeah, so if Beer Nerd is wanting to use Cecil as an anchor, keep his agility around 28, which is the good anchor point, he's probably going to want to keep him. I believe it's level 44 or 45 is when Cecil hits that 28 magic agility point.
Yeah, 28 is the break point for Threemus. Now, like all the other boss locations have different breakpoints. I'm not one who knows any of those, but in general, he becomes a liability in certain points, and Wyvern in particularly can be a very scary proposition with a Cecil anchor.
So we get our first look at the boss of the White Spear altar, and it is Evil Wall, and this is pretty rude.
Yeah, this could be a tough one. I think if this doesn't go well for Beer Nerd this time around and has to try again, we might see a situation where you move Cecil to the back row to help with covering his allies and not taking as much damage. That's another kind of tool that's in Cecil's that's kind of in Cecil's sort of ability suite that you don't have access to on Starman's team.
Yeah, that is definitely a valid strategy. But Cecil taking a lot of damage on the front row, so it would definitely benefit to have him in the back row. I don't know if there's any extra equipment that Beer Nerd could put on him. This would be a great fight to have that glass
hat. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, glass hat. Any of the crystal equipment would be great for him for defensive purposes. Dragoon armor is pretty good too, but whatever you can do to just maximize his physical defense, stick him in the back row and let him cover anybody who's in critical HP. Any damage that he does after that is not really as important because you can do most of the damage with the berserk edges. It's the keeping everybody else alive, because remember, we don't have Rosa, we don't have Cora, so we don't have access to like Cure 3 or Cure 4 to keep HP up during this fight, and that's kind of what's being the difference. Now you see Kane not taking a whole lot of damage in that back row, and that's the sort of situation that you'd really like to see Cecil in if he's going to be covering people. But he's able to do the damage. Now, this is one of the lower HP spots on the moon, so able to get through it enough. Does take a couple casualties, but still gets that objective done.
Well, that's not a key item, but that is a pretty good weapon for Kane. And if he wants to go back and do like an egg grind or a gold dragon grind, he's got a great weapon for it now.
And that might be a little bit safer than the warlock grind for this particular party. If you saw, you had a hard time getting the mute bells up before the warlocks started their Fire 2 script, and that's one of the things where if you've got like this tele anchor that we see on Starman's thing, he had no issues with that. So altering to like a gold dragon or an egg grind might be something that benefits Beer Nerd at this time, especially with that Dragoon Spear in the inventory now.
You know, chat also made a good point that the Dragoon Spear can also be utilized against dragon bosses, and guess who is a dragon boss?
Demist?
You would think Demist would be considered a dragon, but Demist is not actually considered a dragon, but Wyvern is a dragon.
Yes. Wyvern is a dragon, but Bahamut is not. Bahamut is not a dragon. Demist is not a dragon. This game is weird sometimes.
Final Fantasy IV's coding is strange in many ways, including what it considers to be a dragon.
So now Starman is in that same fight, going to be darting that Excalibur. That's one of the best weapons. If you're not darting the spoon, then you can dart this Excalibur. Now he's also got Edward hidden. And this is a strategy that can be used on the Evil Wall in places where it's got a pretty high physical attack relative to its HP. In this case, it didn't come out. But if all the other characters in your party are knocked out and Edward is hidden, and every time the evil wall moves a step, it has to hit somebody. And if it can't hit any of your party's members, it'll hit itself. And so that's kind of one strategy, is you can have all your characters knocked out and have Eddie hidden and just have the evil wall beat itself to death. And so that's something that he was ready to have as a backup plan, just in case that that evil wall was too strong for his party.
Once again, Final Fantasy IV's coding is strange. But meanwhile, on Beer Nerd's side, he completed the ribbons room and got the pink tail. So it's a tail, not the tail that we need for the third objective, and also the twin harp. So I already see harp emotes coming out in chat in case our runners decide to go finish that up, probably once they're done with the mode.
Yeah, that thing that you mentioned about the coding of the game and the hiding Edward strategy in that fight, that's just one of the many things that we really discovered about the game through Free Enterprise, just how kind of wonky it becomes when you mess up with how the game is quote-unquote intended to be played. So this has been really fun being part of this community and learning these things as we're going, like that hide, like just how useful hide is in certain situations.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think we're still discovering things every day, every week, every time we have an event like this. So if anybody out there is watching or listening, has been paying attention, and is not already part of our Discord or part of our community, definitely look into joining us. We would be more than happy to have you. Very friendly, very welcoming community that we have fostered here, and love to welcome new members and see maybe what new strategies you can come up with for this crazy and bizarre game.
Beernerd finding a boss that is notorious, the Cane Azo turtle, in the vanilla Ogopogo spot. If you can time it right, he's pretty safe because you can use lightning magic to get the water down and prevent him from using the big wave attack. If you can't get that down, then the wave is going to be a proportion of Cane Azo's health. And this is a pretty high HP spot, so at the beginning of the fight, the waves are very scary. Once you start dealing a lot of damage to them, those waves become less and less scary as the fight goes on. So it looks like Beernerd was able to keep going for a while. I think he's got this fight in the bag at this point.
And welcome to Invenerable and Raiders. We see Beernerd has got Kenatsu hiding in its shell, while Starman finishes up that boss here in the ribbons room and picks up Pink Tail and the twin harp for his trouble.
I think Cane Azo might have been hiding from Invenerable based on that raid.
I think he was.
Just a white shirt from defeating that Cane Azo. So yet another key item check that ends up being fruitless here. And we see Beernerd not even interested, just resets out of it. He doesn't have any, well, he does have one person in the character who can wear it. I believe Cecil can use a white shirt, but that's not exactly the intended purpose of that piece of gear.
And I didn't see what kind of items Beernerd used in that fight, but if he had used any of his consumables, like Bacchus wines or anything like that, he may have wanted to hold on to those to use for any of these other fights. So resetting there, he has got quite a few levels. That's not a bad play.
And you get to save a little bit of time from walking back and everything like that. Those are kind of the little efficiencies that you see these really quality runners like Beernerd and Starman make when you've got those strategic saves. And knowing, like, is it worth it for me to keep this? What are the benefits? And being able to make that analysis really quickly is a really strong skill to have. We're now seeing a look at the Vanilla Wyvern location, and we find Odin. The physical attacks here are going to be quite strong and scary from Odin. The Odin attack itself, the Zantetsuken equivalent, is not very strong at this location. So it's kind of opposite of a lot of the other Odin spots. But in this particular spot, it's the physical attacks that are going to be the scariest.
Have they found a Thunderclaw for their edges?
That I am not sure about. But the other thing, this is another one where this agility of Cecil might be burning him. And now he is putting Cecil in the back row, so we might see some of those cover strats that we had mentioned a little bit earlier.
Yeah, that first physical attack one-shot at Edge. Now, Edge didn't quite have full health going into this fight, so did also heal up and reconfigured his party a little bit. But yeah, the first 3 physical hits before Odin raises his sword are going to be pretty nasty here. Meanwhile, Starman did take an unfortunate wipe to this Kanyatso, so is going to be, did a little bit of reconfiguring himself and is going back into this fight for a second try.
It looks like beernerd might be going for power overwhelming rather than cover strats, because he used a Bacchus wine on Cecil, and when Cecil is berserked, he does not auto cover.
One of his edges may not be back row glitched. I see that bottom edge is only doing a few hundred damage, but the rest of his party is doing considerable damage. That Lit 3 from Palin doing quad 9s there is very nice.
Yeah, getting that Lit 3 off is really the X factor here. That's going to be the most damage you can do in one move, especially considering the spoon that could have been darted was already used earlier in the scene. And just a Leviathan summon there too, so another failed check for a key item. No interest in that, no Rydia in the party, don't have a summoner. Is okay with his money situation, doesn't need it, doesn't need the XP, just resets, even though it's just the next room. That might have been more of a frustration reset than anything else, too.
Yeah, this moon has turned out to be a little bit haunted. We did get the 2 key items from the ribbons spot, and of course the white spear altar was our objective, our 4th objective that they needed to complete. But otherwise, we're kind of striking out up here.
Speaking of striking out, Starman is having a bit of a rough go against this Kainazo. These waves keep coming, and they're doing about 1,000 damage right now. He's got Edward is in a pretty tight situation right now, and another wave is about to be coming, and I don't think he's done any damage since the last one, so this could be very scary at this point in time.
Yeah, especially if getting the timing off on the lift spells, but he might not even have any items to be casting, like the Zeus Rages or Thor Rages, anything like that, which is looks like it's a little bit unfortunate on Starman's side.
Another unfortunate sighting over on beernerd's side, as the boss in the vanilla pale dim spot is the Wyvern, and at battle speed 3 he was not able to get in a Star Veil up before the Mega Nuke happened, so he adjusted down to 4, and he's going to go ahead and try it again. And this is one of those situations where having Cecil as the anchor could be very scary.
Yeah, we said that Wyvern has been looming, and here it is. Been waiting for our runners up here, not in its vanilla moon location, but on the moon nonetheless. So we'll see with manipulating the battle speed and whatnot if beernerd can get a turn off to at least get the Star Veil up here.
Looks like Starman might be good. He has gotten Kainazo to hide in the shell, using one of his edges as a chemist throwing Cure 3s, and the other looks like to be berserked up here. Has been a pretty solid strategy to get through this difficult fight that we know is not going to really pay off here.
Yeah, very nicely done by Starman to get through this spot. Is going to get this white shirt. We'll see if he keeps it. Tella can use it if he wants to keep it. And he does get a little bit of XP for his edges if he does, but it looks like he's going to reset out of it.
Yeah, Edge I don't think is the character that he has any concerns about levels at this point. If he does want to level anyone, I think it's really Edward is probably the one that he wants the most. Maybe Palom as well, but I think Edward, especially if you want to use him in the Zermist fight, having him get a bit more HP is going to be the most useful to level up this time.
And beernerd taking, I think that was a reset out of that Wyvern fight, and we see him get in his big wheel and is now flying over to the value cave over here at Cave Bahamut. Chat is indicating that he may be out of life potions.
That's a distinct possibility. One of the balancing acts that you make in this, especially in this flag set and in a tournament environment like this, when races matter, is how much shopping do I want to do? Do I want to do so much that I got all the items that I want? And if you don't do as much shopping, you don't go to all the shops, then you might miss out on something really nice, like a big stack of life potions.
Yeah, and especially like once you get that darkness crystal, it's kind of not uncommon to, and especially when one of your objectives is up on the moon, to want to kind of rush the moon quickly. And if you don't realize that maybe you're low on life potions or low on something like star veils or something like that, you get up to the moon and you're like, oh, I'm missing this kind of critical item that I didn't realize that I didn't have a lot of or didn't have any of. Well, by then you don't want to go all the way back down to the blue planet to get it. Since you're already up here, you got to see that cutscene again. So you may have to kind of figure out how to make do without.
Starman able to take care of that Odin. Meanwhile, beernerd finds Dr. Luge in the Bahamut spot. Pretty easy fight, all things considered, for what can be a scary location. This is one of those spots that if we had seen that Baigen here, this would be a very difficult proposition. But Dr. Luge is a pretty nice relief here.
Yeah, this is not a difficult fight at all. Now, it looks like Starman, after completing that crystal sword altar, exited out and has decided to forego the rest of Moon. I don't think that he even knows that Wyvern is at that killed him spot and hasn't checked Value Cave either, but has decided to come back down to the blue planet, and we'll see what he is going to do from here.
Yeah, unsure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He doesn't have 10 key items, so I don't think this is for a grind, like if he wanted to buy more. And maybe it is. It looks like he's going back in, so he's going to buy either more Bacchuses or Sirens or both, because those are the important items that were located for sale in here. If he ran out of Bacchuses, he might think, like, this is the way that I'm doing all of my damage to these difficult bosses, and so I want to make sure I have more of them. If I feel like he still has 7 Sirens in the inventory, so it's probably not for that. I imagine this is to get more Bacchuses.
Meanwhile, on beernerd's side, we have struck out again on key items. Value Cave holding just a ninja sword. Now, it was a Masamune, so that is a good sword for the edges that he has in his party, and he has decided to keep that very valuable ninja sword and not reset out as he did the other non-key items that he's obtained. But otherwise, it looks like beernerd is also going to be coming back down to the blue planet, possibly to restock or maybe just do some of the other key item checks that we know are down here.
And it looks like Starman does not want to go right back up to the moon at this point. Going to do some of these blue planet checks. Looks like he's going to do Cave Magnus and maybe Zot right afterwards. That's an often, because both of those are kind of right in the same ballpark. You do them together to kind of as just kind of conserving movement throughout the course of a run. So yeah, Starman is going to give us a taste of some music here, and so I'm sure everybody in the chat is going to love to hear that.
Yeah, get your Freen harps out, everybody. While Starman makes this dive down through Cave Magnus, beernerd kind of making this the same dive that Starman just did down into Eblan to restock a little bit, and then we'll see if he is going to follow in Starman's footsteps down to the music play, or if he makes a different check altogether.
yeah, this party has been very warrior heavy, so those Bacchus wines have been being used liberally, and so getting more of them is pretty important now. Bearder didn't take the time to sell a lot of stuff that Starman did, so he was only able to afford 10 more. We'll see if that'll be enough to get him through the rest of the seed, or if he's going to have to go and stock up again later. And we see Stella using virus on himself to end that scene a little bit quicker. Meanwhile, Beer Nerd is heading into the same thing. We're going to get back-to-back music checks. Looks like we're working on getting the music set over to Starman so that we can listen to DJ Spoonie B's Rockin' Tunes. You see the evil dolls being taken out by Starman here, and Bearden are going to be not far behind. This is a spot that's kind of noted for having very high magic defense. But at these levels and with the equipment that we've got, that Quake cutting right through that and able to take out all of those dolls at once. We also saw the hourglass being used. It can stop all the blue dolls, and so able to get that. But the package is not something that the runners are really interested in right now. So Starman going to save time instead of having to exit out of there and fly all the way back. Just going to go ahead and reset because he saved right outside Zot, and we're going to get the Earth crystal check here in the Tower of Zot next. Bearder not far behind.
Yeah, turning into a very, very tight race. So far anyway, we still are looking for either the adamant so that they can forge that with the legend sword for the first objective, or the tower key for the second objective, or the rat tail. They do already have the hook so that they can turn that in. They need 2 of those 3 items to get their crystal.
And the interesting thing is all of those could be gated behind one boss location, because the adamant could be behind the rat tail, which could be behind the tower key, which could be behind the wyvern, for example. So
that's quite the rude chain that you're describing, but yes, it is. That's entirely possible. They do, of course, have that wyvern that is looming. I think it was Starman. Was it Starman who saw it, or
it was Beer Nerd?
Beer Nerd saw it. Starman does not know, but Starman, of course, does know that there are the 2 checks that he has not peeked yet, waiting for him up on the moon if he wants to go back and check those.
We also have the Lunar Sparkle in the Ashura spot, which now I think has to be either Pale, Dim, or Plague, and the Keyless Tower still available in the underworld as well. So we've got a few places to check at this point. But it looks like I think both of the runners are probably going to be making this Zot check, as Beernerd is in the treasury right now. I imagine probably going to take this check before flying somewhere else, but I've been proven wrong many times.
Yeah, the Keyless Tower is also a lunar sparkle. So Paledym and Plague, I believe, are the two lunar bosses that we haven't seen, and we don't know which one is where, but we know where both of them are. One is at Keyless Tower, or top of tower, and one is at the Ashura spot.
Now the question is, how bad do you want a white mage? Because we see Rosa as the first character in the Tower of Zot. Now, if this was much earlier in the seed, I think it's a slam dunk. You take Rosa. At this point, after getting all those levels that you've got on the characters in your party right now, is it still worth it to take her? And we're going to see what the runners think.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a French vanilla for both of these characters, finding Rosa in Kane's location and Kane and Rosa's location up here on the Tower of Zot character checks.
And Starman says, yes, I want Rosa. Get out of here, Tella.
Yeah, having done a lot of leveling up on the moon already, kind of don't need Tella for utility at this point. You're not going to do a D machine grind. If you want to use sirens, you can use hourglasses to stop gold dragons. You can use mute bells to mute warlocks. You can just summon eggs if you want to in the underground. So you kind of don't need Tella at this point. And Rose is obviously a much stronger white magic user once you get her leveled.
The one thing that you're sacrificing by getting rid of Tella at this point is really the fact that Tella was being used as your anchor in Starman's situation. Beernerd's going to have a different situation in evaluating the Rosa. And so I think Beernerd is definitely going to take Rosa, but I try to say these things, and I always think, like, I'm going to say, he's going to do this. And then does he do it? I don't know, really.
Yeah, and your point about Tella being Starman's anchor, that's a very good point. So Starman is going to have to evaluate what he's going to do for his anchoring situation, especially for the Z fight. Now, picks up a pan from that Tower of Zot play that's super valuable, and we see Starman immediately diving back into the underground is going to get on with that pan to get a potential 2 key items. This could be the 2 key items he needs to get his crystal.
Absolutely could be. I think there is one other option if he wants a different anchor. I believe there's still an old man Tella sitting on the top of Mount Hobbs for both of our runners. So that is an option that could be used. And as we do see, Rosa is added to the team over on Beernerd's side.
And it looks like Beernerd is opting to take that Rosa, has dismissed Kane, and is picking up the best white mage in his place.
You're going to start some battles with lines like that, Maggie. And the first key item is the Sand Ruby from the Pan chain. And so that does get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 key items. So we're there at double experience now for Starman.
And Starman got a Sand Ruby from the Sylphs for bonking Yang with that pan, and is going to go talk to Sheila to get the second key item check from that pan.
Yeah, we'll see what is up here in Sheila 2. Sheila 1 gave us the Darkness Crystal.
Chat, I missed it. What was that second key item that Sheila gave there? Oh, an Avenger. An Avenger, not great for Starman's party.
Yeah, you really want to have Kane or Cecil to take advantage of that Avenger. Question is, what's going to be the next step? Are we going to see somebody try to conquer that wyvern? Looks like Starman's heading back to the moon. We're going to see if it's going to be that wyvern spot that's checked. Starman doesn't know that the wyvern looms there, however. Because that Starman is, or that wyvern is going to be not what Starman hopes to see here.
Okay, I think we got our audio issues resolved. Sorry about that, chat and Rex. I can hear you now.
That's good. I just, when you called Rosa the best white mage, I just said that people are going to be battling over what you said there. So
that's fair. I know that there is definitely a forum fan base in this community. And that's definitely fair because she is definitely she's a cutie and she's definitely got her utility usage.
All right, so Starman now getting the news that it is the wyvern here in this spot. With a base level Rosa, he's able to get one Star Veil up before the Mega Nuke comes off, but the question now becomes, can he recover?
Ooh, that's a fast wyvern too.
This is a very scary location to find wyvern. The last time I fought wyvern in this location, I lost and did not come back here. And luckily, I didn't need to go there to finish the scene because that was a scary proposition.
Well, fortunately, it looks like the nuke was not enough to one-shot at least the edge that had full hit points. Now, of course, anybody who gets lifed up and doesn't get healed is going to get one-shotted by that nuke, but does manage to get a Bacchus up on one of the edges, so is going to start doing a little bit of damage here, is trying to recover. Hopefully Starman can hang on here. Meanwhile, beernerd is going to run up the keyless tower and see which of the lunar sparkles awaits at the top of the tower here.
Yeah, always good to see some divergence. We had seen our runners do so much similar things throughout the course of the run, and now we're seeing some true divergence here at the end. And like whether or not this wyvern or this keyless tower play is what we need, it's going to be a pretty good situation for one, but both of them could be key items too. So it's really interesting. And the tower key, I think this is huge for Starman.
Yes, it is. That's probably going to push him down to that tower right where beernerd is. And of course, it is one of the required key items needed for that second objective.
And that was really well played by Starman. Got the one required Star Veil up to avoid the Mega Nuke total party killing the team there, and then was able to recover, didn't go to town right away. It took a little bit of time to recover his team, saw what he was up against with those reflected nukes, and then planned accordingly and just really efficiently took down that wyvern. Really well played there by Starman.
Yeah, very nicely done. So we do see that it is another dragon up here at the top of Lower Babel. Pale Dim is considered a dragon, so beernerd did dismiss his cane, so does not have access to that Dragoon Spear to do quad damage, but is still doing just fine against this Pale Dim. Pale Dim is only going to do physical attacks and then counter with slow as long as you attack it. I think it has some other counters if you do things like summons or stuff like that, but this is a very manageable fight with his levels and his setup here.
Yeah, Pale Dim will counter summons with Quake, will counter level 3 magic spells with nasty elemental counterattacks, and it absorbs all. It's got some defenses in it, but the team that we've assembled for this particular seed is really strong against a Pale Dim at this particular location. beernerd, no problem taking down the Lunar Dragon. It's rewarded with the Baron key, which means that he's probably can't reset out of the tower. He's going to have to walk it out.
Yeah, that's potential another rabbit hole here that, of course, could have the rat tail and or the adamant. There are 2 key item checks behind that Baron key. So just more spots opening up here for our runners. And it looks like Starman is going to go ahead and do the top of tower check before opening up and destroying the super cannon check behind the tower key.
And Starman's going to get that Baron key too, and is probably going to walk back down to the tower key with that as well. I mean, it's just one of those things where at this point in time, you're so close, you can't risk that that's not a key, a rabbit hole that you need to follow.
I imagine beernerd is going to follow that right away. He noped out of the wyvern, so he probably doesn't want to go back up there anytime soon. His other option would be to go down and do. He probably knows that it's plague down at the Ashura spot, so he might do that. We'll see, because he's already down here in the underground, and that's the only other thing that he has to do while he's down here. But nope, we do see him taking the airship back up to the overworld and parking right outside Baron, so it looks like he is going to go ahead and utilize that Baron key right away.
I think that might be one of those kind of thoughts where it's like, I got this key item, my opponent hasn't finished yet, maybe they haven't done this yet, so I'm going to follow this until this chain is done. And I think that's usually a pretty logical play. If I made a play to go to Keyless Tower, I'm going to commit to that Keyless Tower play, and following Baron is committing to that Keyless Tower.
Yeah, that's the kind of my initial thought as well. And it does open up 2 more key item checks, so it's slightly denser than going to the Fame Arch, where there's only 1 more key item check available.
To be fair, I think it's still 2 key item checks for beernerd. I don't think he defeated Bahamut like Starman did, but
okay.
I could be remembering things wrong, but I think that's what's happening.
So Starman goes in here, opens up the super cannon room, finds another free boss. This is the Baron Guards. Now we've already been through most of the trolley boss locations, so you don't hate to see it as much here, but this would have been another nice boss to see like at the Pale Dim spot instead of Wyvern.
Once you're at 10 key items, I think there's almost no better boss to find in the vanilla D-Lunar spot than this fight. Looks like beernerd's making the play for Odin before finishing out the Baron sequence. This is like one of those things where you've got a really strong party. There really isn't any bosses that he's super scared of. He might get punked out by an alt gauntlet, though. But no, it's the Water Hag.
So here's a free boss in a not free location that we've been talking about this whole seed. Water Hag, of course, just needs to be bonked 3 times. Anything that does damage, you can attack it, you can cast a spell at it, you can use an item on it that does damage. Anything that does damage to it, 3 hits and it will go arg and then go away. So it's nice to find this in a spot that has that is a kind of a higher tier boss location.
It's also nice to find this when you see that blue robe, you're like, please be Water Hag, please be Water Hag, please be Water Hag. Because otherwise, if it's not Water Hag, it's that alt gauntlet. And whether or not it's an easy fight, it is a difficult, or it is a long fight. But it looks like that Wyvern was the play, because the Wyvern led to the Tower Key, which led to the Adamant. And now that's going to put Starman Random in go mode. Oh, excuse me, I looked at the wrong screen. It was at the Odin. Boy.
No, that's all right, because Starman also has the Baron Key, and so, is very likely to be taking the same path that beernerd is on. Now, of course, beernerd has got now everything he needs for the first objective, has already completed the 4th objective. If this is the rat tail, he could be in pretty much the same situation that Starman's in, of having 3 or 4 objectives.
The one thing is, like, we talked about the committing to the tower, the keyless tower play. There is not as much of an incentive to commit to a fully keyed tower. So Starman might not be as drawn to the barren location as beernerd was. Starman might go for that plague down at the Ashura spot beforehand. So it's really interesting, and we're going to see what this second key item from Baron is going to be. But I think things are looking really good for beernerd right now, because I think we've got this location and we've got that Fame Arch boss, and I think one of them is going to have to be we've got very few checks left where that rat tail can be hiding.
Yeah, it could be in the underground with the lunar sparkle that's at Ashura. I think that's it. I think that's the only other spot it can be, isn't it? Have they been everywhere else?
That's unless I'm missing something. I think those are the only 2 that are there, and so it might be depending on if Starman makes that same gamble of going to Odin first. Because there's the rat tail.
Oh, there's the rat tail, and Starman is diving into Baron right now. So he's gonna have either the rat tail or the adamant. It just depends on where he goes first. So both of our runners, this is turning into a very, very tight race right now.
Yeah, beernerd has to make a couple of stops, has to go to the Adamant Grotto where he's at right now to turn in that rat tail, and has to go to Kopel's shop. Starman's only going to have to go to one of those 2 locations, and so he's going to be able to catch up a little bit. But oh my goodness, this is getting to be extraordinarily close.
Okay, so from the rat tail, we got the Luca key. So now we know that Plague is at the Ashura spot, and we know that it doesn't have a key item because the package was already accounted for. It was somewhere. I don't even remember where it was.
Music. I think
music. Is that where it was? Yeah, they pulled a reset out of it, I think. But we know we saw it, so we know that there's not a key item at the Ashura spot.
beernerd is now heading over to Kopel's hut, going to forge that Excalibur, and is going to get the crystal to be in go mode. Might be heading straight to Toria there. Now the question is, do they think they need any more grinding? They're at pretty good levels right now. I think beernerd is probably set. The question is Cecil where he wants to be? I think that's the only consideration, and it's been a while since I've seen his levels.
So Starman is going up to the Baron Throne spot, is going to get through this boss very quickly and pick up the rat tail. So at that point, all he will have to do is turn that rat tail in to get the third objective, and then he will also have his crystal in hand.
beernerd goes into the status screen for Cecil really quickly, sees that Cecil's at 28 agility, probably exactly where he wants to be. If he's going to grind, he's going to be grinding for the other characters, not for Cecil, is my thought here. And yeah, we see Edge going to be knocking out Cecil right away. Yeah, and I think this is going to be to get Rosa to Cure 4. I don't think he's going to bother with this party worrying about getting up to white or nuke on his mages. What they're doing is kind of irrelevant for the Threemus fight that with the party that he's got established right now.
Yeah, just a few more eggs, maybe get Rosa, just a few more levels to get her in a safer zone for big bangs. Then he is going to be good to go.
Now, we have been seeing on Starman's screen, Rosa really basically fulfilling the same role that we saw Tella in before, just being knocked out in the middle of the party, fulfilling that anchor role. We'll see if that's going to be continuing for Starman, or if he's going to decide that he does actually want to have a healer for the Threemus fight. It's not absolutely required to have a white mage, but a lot of runners feel a lot more comfortable with a white mage in their party for that Threemus fight.
Yeah, and with the party that Starman has, pretty similar to beernerd's party, he could be thinking that even if he just gets Rosa, I've seen this doesn't happen very often, but even if he just gets Rosa up to like Berserk, he then has a character who can help Berserk his fighters. And then he could just be thinking of going in and leaving Rosa as his anchor, but also help out with just a little bit of utility like that.
I think that might have been a consideration if Starman hadn't bought 30 Bacchuses not too long ago.
Good point.
Okay, now looks like beernerd is done with the grind. We'll see where Starman is at. Starman is heading straight to Toria, so this is going to be a photo finish here.
Dang! All right. Well, I think that it's just about time to ask a question, Rex. They both have their pass. They're both going to be taking the shortcut here to get to Threemus. I see the flags coming out in chat. Do you want to do the honors?
Sure. Whose butt are we going to kick tonight? Because it is butt time, and it's going to be butt time for both of our runners. So, Starman's going to be going in maybe 5 seconds before beernerd. This is as close as it gets, folks.
All right, both of them taking the warp to the moon. We have chat asking whose butt it's going to be. Both of them are going to be throwing their crystal. We're going to be seeing Threemus's true colors emerging in just a moment here.
So we've got different objectives completed by our runners, and we end up being here basically the same time, different party compositions. This is so great. The randomizer did rando, and we've got different strategies that have been both very effective to get through this seed.
Yeah, this was a great demonstration of the skill and just talent that our runners have been displaying in this tournament and with these flags, and showing off these flags very nicely, showing off, as we talked about, the different objectives, the different paths that they can take, the different party compositions, since we do show Cecil on beernerd's side, doubling kind of up as both the anchor and doing some damage, and no Cecil on Starman's side, going with a low-level character as anchor. So, very, very nicely run by both of our runners. And so here comes our Z-Sprite tonight. I don't know if I know what this is.
I think this is Bartandalus from Final Fantasy 13.
It's a neat-looking sprite. I'm not too familiar with that game or what this thing is. Is it a character or is it? I don't know. What is it?
It's a boss, and it's that one boss for Final Fantasy 13. I think for a lot of people. So, but here we are, and we're going to see Rosa throw the Cure 3 over on Starman's side. We see Rosa holding, waiting for the Big Bang to come to cure up afterwards over on beernerd's side. We have got a race here.
Getting some Star Veils off. Probably going to do a little bit of reflecting. Does Palom have nuke for either of our runners?
I don't believe so. I don't think they're really counting on nuke, although beernerd might have it. It doesn't look like he's really caring what's happening with Palom, but he does use a Star Veil, so he might be setting up for a hybrid strategy here.
Starman has it too. I just saw it in Pelham's first spell slot. So yeah, they both of them did get their black mages up to high enough levels for it. So going to be contributing extra damage that way as well.
Well, another thing that I predicted was wrong. So
well, that just goes to show how much again variance these seeds, because Rex, you've played a lot of these, and you're in the Magma Route as well. So you have your own play style. Everybody's got their own play style. So it just goes to show how different routes everybody can take and get kind of the same results here, and how close they can be as well. We see this is coming right down to the wire.
Yeah, this is really crazy. Both teams have 3 very good berserkers. Beernerd has 1 extra character who can do things, and that might be the difference. I'm not saying it will be the difference, though. The agility difference is going to be something using the Cecil anchor versus the Rosa anchor. So those are like the 2 main factors that are going up in this fight. As long as nothing goes wrong for anybody, crossing our fingers. Oh, and I think Starman is done.
Did you see the flash?
There's the
and there's
on Beernerd. It looks like the winner is Starman at 142.40. At 142.43, 3-second difference between our runners. Are you kidding me?
That was incredibly close. Only a 3-second difference between our 2 runners. GG to both of them. GG to Starman, eking out that first place finish, and then Beernerd coming in right behind, only 3 seconds behind there.
And yeah, let's see if we can get anybody in for an interview here. That was an intense Threemus fight that we just saw there. And I believe we are now joined by, it's a Starman, the winner by 3 seconds. GG's on your run here. Yeah, I can imagine that. And I think we've got Beernerd in here too, so it's appropriate. After a race this close, we got both of you in here right now.
GG to both of you. It was an absolute photo finish right at the end, watching you both in the Threemus fight, and the flashes coming back to back like that.
Hey, thanks. GG, Starman. That was a great race.
GG's.
So I think the big difference was the party composition. Starman, you decided to ditch Cecil, but you had Edward with a spoon. And Beernerd, you decided to rock the 28 agility Cecil and have the 5 full-leveled party members. Starman, first, what was your decision thinking? What was your reasoning of deciding to let go of Cecil?
It was getting to the point where I did not feel like I was going to see a second one, and I like my RA1 strats. So.
And I guess the same question with your party composition. Why did you decide to keep Cecil Beernerd?
Heading down the tower, it was really nice to have him for the back row cover strats against Mistrig and whatnot. Kind of facilitated that a little bit better than. I guess I figured I could ditch him along the way if I really had to. But then we found Excal.
Yeah, once you got the Excal, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm feeling fine that I've got Cecil in my party now, right?
Right.
I think another part of the race that was a big difference maker, like that kind of divided the two of you, was wyvern that was found at the Pale Dim location, and that was a tough spot to find that boss in. Beernerd, you were the first of both of you to find that boss, but you decided to know about it there. And Starman, you ended up beating it, and that gave you that tower key, and that kind of funneled you both into the different methods that you got to the end game. So tell me, Starman, a little bit about that fight and how you felt when you went back up to the moon and found that wyvern there.
I was like, oh, okay. I was so glad I got that star veil off.
Yeah. And then you were able to recover with just the one star veil too. So I think that's kind of one of the more difficult things, because sometimes those counter nukes can come or reflected nukes can come so fast.
Yeah, I tried that fight twice. I'm still kicking myself for running back the second time, but I couldn't get there.
So this is one of the closest races. Like, this is a week that we've already seen one tie in this event, and now the two of you coming in with 3-second difference. There's already talks in the chat about another tie and everything like that. So just that it's that close. What were your thoughts like when both of you hit that enter button for the dot or exclamation point done in Discord?
I guess I saw he was typing a moment before I was going, so I knew he was going to be right at the wire. I mean, I was really happy with the run and everything. It was just a great race.
And do any of you have any final thoughts? I know it sounds like at least for Starman, like the adrenaline might still be pumping for you at this point.
Yeah, I think I need to go do something for a bit.
All right. Well, GG's to both of you. This was such a tremendous race to watch, especially the ending. If you've got any final thoughts, go ahead and give them to us.
Well, as always, just thanks for the event. Thanks for streaming it. Thanks for everybody working behind the scenes. This is a really fun event, and I'd encourage anybody who's curious about trying it to get in and do it. It's been one of the most fun things I've done lately.
Well, GG again to both of you, and thank you so much for being part of the tournament and for letting us restream your race. It was a great race to watch, and good luck to both of you going forward in the Magma Route.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was Starman and Beernerd, the superstars of tonight's extremely close race here in the Magma Route. Before we go, I just want to give a quick shout outs to our restreamer today, Smapty, and our tracker, Boren Soren. Without them, we wouldn't have this great show to put on tonight. Also, big shout outs to all the admins who are making sure that everything in this tournament goes smoothly. Also, my co-commentator tonight, Maggie the Cat. It's always fun to commentate with you, Maggie.
Oh, absolutely, Rex. This has been an absolute blast. Fantastic race to watch and to commentate with you. And thank you so much for joining me as well. And thank you to everybody in chat who joined us. Rex, I think that we have another race that's about to kick off here that we're going to send everybody over to.
Yep, we're going to head you on over to RPG Limit Break for the Chaos Hades versus McBain match. Just want to remind everybody, please do not spoil the outcome of this race when we go over to that other one. Let the people who are over there discover this on their own. You can tell them to go back and watch this, just don't tell them what happened, okay? So go ahead and do that. Chat, you and I, we know what's up, right? All right. Have a good night, and thanks, everybody, for watching.
Good night.